Good morning. This is the daily Tanya portion for the 14th of Shevat, for a short year, a simple year, a complete health and recovery, refuah shlema to Mazal bat Rachel, Imi Morati, my mother, my teacher. She should have a complete health and recovery. Lots of success and parnasa to our Bel ben Mazal, my brother. He should have a lot of success in all his endeavors and good parnasa, make a good living. Okay, so you should have be able to accomplish what you want. Okay, so Perek Chav Daled. וזה לעומת זה הן שסה מצוות לא תעשה. So we say זה לעומת זה. The ze is the side of kedusha. The side of that is where you do live according to the 248 positive commandments. You do what Hashem asks us to do, okay? And you abstain from the 365 negative commandments. Leumat ze, that's the other side. That's the what we call the sitra achra, the other side, the side that is opposing kedusha, okay? And for that, because reality is designed so that we would have, that the mitzvot would have a meaning, right? Reality is done in a way that Hashem looked at the Torah and said, there's a mitzvah that says, thou shalt not steal, lo tignov. Right? He says, okay, then in the reality that is created, there have to be people who steal, right? And that is what we call, okay, that is what gives meaning to the commandment, lo tignov. Okay. So there are the 365 negative commandments, right? Shasa mitzvot lo taseh, deoraita, from the Torah, v'chol isurei derabanan, and the additional the additional commandments that are from our sages. Because they are opposing his will and his wisdom, chokhmato, right? They are completely opposite, and they mean separateness from his oneness and his unity. That's what it means to not observe one of the 365 negative commandments and the additional fences that the sages have put before us, right? So one of these fences are, not eating milk and dairy. Milk and dairy, that you're allowed to eat. Not eating milk and meat, right? That's from the Torah. But then not eating milk and chicken, that's from our sages, right? Right? So that's reality. In reality, where we have separateness from Hashem, that's what we call sitra achra, and that's what we call avodah zara, right? Where you worship something that is other than Hashem. In our day and age, the biggest thing that we worship is ourselves instead of Him, right? That's the selfie, the iPhone, the iTunes, etc. Right? So the I, right? Okay. And that is why you have a God that is different than Him, right? That's Elokim Acherim. And that stems from the hidden aspect of reality, right? Reality, the world, olam, is the same word as ha'ilem, which means hidden, right? So because we live in a reality where there is an olam which hides His presence, right? You cannot see Hashem. So in this reality, you have a complete free will. You can live in unity, in oneness with Hashem, or in separateness. And separateness is what we call sitra achra, right? Sitra achra, and in plain English, it's also called evil, right? So Separateness from appreciating that everything that he created is valuable, right? That leads to really, that's the definition of evil, right? וכן ג' לבושי הנפש שמקליפת נוגה שבישראל, שהם מחשבה, דיבור ומעשה, בלושים ושסה לא תעשה. Okay, and then what happens is that the three clothings of the soul, right? Machshava, dibur, and maaseh, right? And that comes from the animal soul, nefesh abamit, miklipat noga, right? Shebi Israel, right? And they are clothed in shasalot asedoraita verabanan. וכן מהות הנפש עצמה, בלוש ולבושה, כולם מיוחדים ממש בסטרא אחרא וקליפות זו הנקראת עבודה זרה. So when you God forbid and act on something that causes separateness, right? That is called avodah zarah, right? ולא עוד אלא שבטלים תפולים אלא גרועים פחותים ממנה מאוד. So when you enact on this, right, we have this thing called the klipa, the sitra achra, right? But when you God forbid, chas v'shalom, right? When you chas v'shalom transgress upon Hashem's will, you become worse than the sitra achra. Why is that? Because the sitra achra is doing its job. That's what it was created for. It was created to give reality the notion that there is a meaning to thou shalt not steal, lo tignov, right? And when you transgress against that commandment, then you are less than the sitra achra because it's doing its job. Right? That's what it does, right? Not only is it doing its job, it also wants to fail. We learned that in earlier chapters, right? That we learned the mashal of the zona of the whore, right? She wants to fail, right? So here he says, why are they low? Why are we lower than the sitra achra when we transgress against the will of Hashem? Because the sitra achra does not have a corporeal body, and it knows who the master is. And when we transgress against the will of Hashem, we have a corporeal body and we transgress, right? Right? The sitra achra does not work against the will of Hashem like its angels of separateness, right? Right? So so the sitra achra also has a host of angels of separateness, and those are sent by those are the ones who listen to the sitra achra, right? Chas v'shalom. Right? So even Bil'am, who was a goy, who was a non-Jew, which means that he's from the sitra achra, right? His source is from the sitra achra, right? And he said, I cannot transgress against the will of Hashem. Even though it is called avodah zarah, you work something that's other than Hashem. It's called elokah de elokah because you worship something that's in between you, in between us and Hashem. You worship something in the middle, right? Could be money, could be really, like any idol, really, any idol worship, right? That idol worship could be, you worship love, right? Well, love is not everything. There's also awe. There's also compassion, right? So if you worship something that's other than Him, then that's okay. The sitra achra and her host of angels cannot transgress against His will. Itbarach, against His will, blessed be He. Because they know that their animation and life force come from Him, and it comes from the how do I say this? The most external of the external aspects of godliness. So there's a mashal for this. Let's say you have a factory, right? And in the factory you have a lot of workers, and they're all work, and they're happy workers, and they do their job, and everything is great. But there's this one person, he knows how to fix the machine. That's what he does. And he always causes problems. He's always like, he gives a hard time. He doesn't behave well. He upsets other people. But you have to have him because he's the guy who maintains the machine. What are you going to do? He gets dirty. He maintains the machine. That's what he does, right? So how do you pay? When it comes time to pay him, everyone else you pay, here's your salary. You did a good job. Thank you. But this guy, he does his job, but he's very unpleasant. So you say, okay, here's your check, right? And not only that, you say, oh, you talk to his boss, right? So you tell his boss, oh, here's his check, that guy. Okay, and the boss gives that guy, here's your check, right? So that's like, you give it from behind. Like, you don't really enjoy his company, right? So that's what it means. That's a sitracha. Now imagine working for that guy. You work for that guy who gets his paycheck like, I gotta pay him, like that, as opposed to, oh, I'm gonna pay you. Here you go. You did a good job, right? Which way do you want to get paid? And not only do you not get paid like that, you work for that guy, the guy who causes all the trouble, right? He's paid, Okay. So they know that they receive their life force from his ratzon, his will, and his will is that we would have a reality where free will has a meaning. So when you're commanded, thou shalt not steal, lo tignov, it has to have a meaning. There have to be people in the world who steal, and those are people who work for the sitracha, right? For the side that is opposing kedusha. And we should say, oh, I'm a Jew, I don't steal. I'm straight as an arrow. Try to be straight as an arrow. אלא שנקטם וחלטם שבתוכם היא מבחינת גלות שבתוכם, היא מבחינת גלות בתוכם. Now, not only that, but that relationship that you have with that guy that you give him the picture, oh, there you go, okay, right? He gets so entrapped in the fact that you need me that he thinks that he's the most important guy in the factory. This factory will break apart if no one will fix the machines. That's the way he thinks, right? So he thinks, להחשיב עצמן אלוקות, he thinks he's a god, right? That's what that guy thinks. והרי זו כפירה באחדותו, and that is a complete kafira. That's a complete how do I translate this word? That's a complete opposition to the premise of oneness and unity, right? But even that guy, right? He doesn't say, oh, there isn't a God, there isn't Hashem, right? Velomar lohu. Ella, what does he say? He's calling Elokah de Elokah. He says, I know that above my boss, there's another boss, right? Elokah de Elokaya. And that's who gives me the check, right? But דהיינו, חיותם וקיומם נמשך ויורד עליהם מרצונו יתברך. Their life force and their existification that comes to them from his will. They know where it comes from, right? And that's why, the guy who fixes the machine, he does what he's supposed to do, right? He's not pleasant. He thinks he's the most important guy in the world, right? Because he can think so, but he does his job. Imagine when you work for that guy. You're going to work for that guy? Well, when you work for that guy, you're going completely against unity, completely against oneness, right? And you're worse than him because you're not doing your job. Your job is to be in unity and oneness, and you work for him. You're not doing your job, right? ואם כן האדם עובר על רצונו יתברך הוא גרוע ופחות הרבה מאוד מהסטרא אחרא והקליפה. So when you listen to the sitra, when you listen to the side opposing the kedusha and the klipa, right, the husks, right? The side that is a husk that does not that stands between us and godliness. Right? When we listen to that, we are worse than it. Okay. And that husk, the klipa, is called avodah zara, right? Ve'elokim acharim, and a different God, right? And at that time, when we transgress one of the 365 negative commandments, we are completely, utterly separate from the source of our life, Hashem. Okay. Yoter mimena, even more than the sitra achra. וכאילו כופר באחדותו יותר ממנה חס ושלום. And it's like you elevate yourself more than the sitra, more than the guy who thinks he's the most important guy in the factory because he knows how to fix the machine, right? More than that, you are kofar. Yeah, you're right. You transgress against Hashem. As is said in the book Etz Chaim, Gate 42, Sof Perek Dalet, this is end of chapter 4. שהרע שבעולם הזה החומרי הוא שמרי הקליפות הגסות. That the separateness, the evil and the separateness in this world, in this material world, in the physical world, is the fermentation of basically the leftovers from the fermentation from the klipa, right? V'hu tachlit haberur, and that is the essence of berur. What is berur? Berur is, do I do the right thing? Do I not do the right thing? I have free will. That is absolutely true. But do I do the right thing? Or do I transgress against Hashem? Do I do the right thing? Do I transgress against Hashem? What do I do? That's berur, right? ולכן כל מעשי העולם הזה קשים ורעים והרשעים גוברים בו וכו'. That is why, because we have at every given instant, we could be attacked by an inclination for separateness. And that is why we say that, you know, this world, this physical world, is hard, and it is filled with separateness. So we call evil as separateness, right? It's filled with separateness, and it looks like people who thrive on separateness are on top. That's what it looks like, but that's not the truth. Okay, so this was a Tanya portion for the 14th of Shevat, for a simple year, short year. Lots of parnasa for our Bel Ben Mazal. He should have a lot of success in all his endeavors, and a refuah shlema for Mazal Bat Rachel.